Krishna, welcome to my abode, where I recite poetry to enlighten the world in Krishna consciousness, spiritual knowledge about ourselves, about God, about His pure devotees, about things that really are the most important subject matters for us to understand who we really are, to understand who is God, to understand teachings that stretch back for eternity. Lord Krishna Himself, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. His knowledge is nothing new. It has been preached forever, according to the time and circumstances throughout the material universe, where there are conditioned souls who have fallen from their home. We have all fallen from our home. Our home is eternal. It is full of bliss and knowledge. It is all bright, and there's no matter there. We are not matter. We are not this material body. None of us. We are all spirit souls, eternal parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in all forms of life, from the lowest forms to the highest forms. There's 8,400,000 species of life we can find this in Vedic literatures. But we cannot understand these Vedic literatures, nor what their purport is, unless we approach a bona fide spiritual master who knows the purport of the Vedas. The Vedas, let me tell you, are the very breathing of the Supreme Lord Krishna. The Vedas are eternal, and originally the disciple only had to hear from his spiritual master, and he could remember everything perfectly, what his spiritual master taught him. You see, actually in this human form of life, from the very beginning of life, we are meant to have a spiritual master to train us up in understanding what this human form of life is meant for. It is not for whimsical folly. It is meant for remembering who we are. Only in this human form of life may we really know who we are and who is God. It is not possible in other forms of life. And I can only say these things because I became a disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who came here from India around 1965. He came on the order of his spiritual master to print books that he had translated from the original Vedic Sanskrit literatures. Sanskrit is actually an eternal language. It is sung in the spiritual world, where every step is a dance and every word is a song. That's our home. We're always singing, and we're always dancing, and we're always engaging in ecstatic service to the Lord in a most intimate, loving relationship. But now this is all forgotten, most unfortunately. And since it is forgotten, all we can do is create havoc in this material world. This material world is a place we can cause havoc as soon as we even think of leaving our service to Krishna in the spiritual world, because we're so tiny. We forget. We become bewildered. We're not God. But the spiritual world is a perfect place where everything is going on harmoniously and beautifully. It's a very colorful and effulgent place. It's unlimitedly beautiful, the spiritual world. And now the residents there are, you could say, also unlimitedly beautiful and unlimitedly effulgent and unlimitedly ecstatic. This is actually our nature. So what a crime it is that we don't try to seek out who we are and who really is God. Why be satisfied with just believing? What kind of intelligence is that? If we can see God, if we can hear God, and we can actually bring peace to this world to the perfect wisdom of Krishna, then why not? Why foolishly waste our time for a few moments in this material world to simply bind up ourselves again, as long as we're engaged in whimsical activity that wasn't authorized by the Supreme Lord or his representative? All we do is create more and more material bodies to take birth in. There are 8,400,000 different bodies. We could be germs, we could be roaches, we can be animals, we can be demigods. All these things are possible. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that wherever our consciousness is fixed on at the time of death, there we will surely go. And most everyone here, the way they are living their lives, their consciousness, they're simply going to become cats and dogs because they don't care for what their human form of life is meant for. And all I'm meant to do, having heard the truth and realized the truth through my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, all I'm meant to do is preach. Preach exactly what my spiritual master said. And he preaches exactly what his spiritual master said. And it's just a whole disciplic succession called the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. The original speaker is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. And the best way to get this knowledge, I will tell you, is through my spiritual master's books that he translated from the Vedas. The Vedas are eternal, as I said, and they're the womb of all the scriptures, and they're the mother of all wisdom. Everything is there. How to be a perfect soldier, how to be a perfect farmer, how to be a perfect doctor, how to be a perfect teacher. Knowledge about everything is there in the Vedas because of the very breathing of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Krishna is the name of God. God has unlimited names, and he's unlimited in every respect. That is God. Whereas everyone else other than Krishna are limited. And that is why, even though we may even be in the most perfect atmosphere, because we're not God and limited, we can get illusioned, and this is the place where we are illusioned, this material world. Everyone is illusioned here. Nobody knows who they are. And there's no hope for peace in this world or solving anything unless we actually know who we are and know who is God. All we can ever accomplish through our limited intelligence is a mess. We have to hear from perfect sources. The perfect source, the unlimitedly perfect source, is Krishna. And the most wise persons, they only repeat Krishna. And other wise persons will only repeat Krishna. And this is reality. We are not these bodies. We are not flesh. We are not bone. We are not blood. We are spiritual. We have a body too, a spiritual body. And that body actually, in a limited way, can do everything that Krishna does. He can see through his eyes. He can see through his nose. He can see through any part of his body. He can taste through any part of his body. He could do everything through every organ of his body. And so can we, when our spiritual body is revived, but only in a limited way. We're always limited. None of us can ever become God. Anybody who tells you this, he is the biggest cheater. And he may have actually very great yogic siddhis or perfections. He may be able to hypnotize you. He may be able to reach across a nation and grab a mango or some exotic fruit that we don't have here. Yogis, they can do unbelievable things. Floating is nothing for them, just floating. That is nothing. They can expand themselves. They can hypnotize thousands of people to become their disciples and convince them that they are God. This is a reality. This is reality. That we can be easily cheated. In fact, this is the world of the cheaters and the cheated. That is all it is. If you're intelligent, we want to find out someone who we know will not cheat us. And if we really desire that, Krishna is in our heart. We're not doing anything without him. We can't even tie our shoe without Krishna. He's in our heart. He's guiding all our wanderings. And he wants us to learn very, very clearly what is right and what is wrong. Because we're not forced to go back to Godhead and be where we belong. We're not forced to have to serve Krishna. He wants us to serve him out of our love, which is really our very nature is to love God. But if we want to be bewildered and forget all about ourselves, that's what this material world is for. For us to just keep deluding ourselves with never knowing really what we're here for, or even caring, in fact. We can actually have anything we want. If you want to be an atheist, Krishna will say, okay, be an atheist. But do you want to know me? You can also know me. You can know the truth. Or you can just be deluded in 8,100,000 different kinds of bodies, 800,400,000 different kinds of mentalities, and human forms and animal forms and demigod forms and insect forms. This is how kind Krishna is. Whatever we want, we can have. According to our work also, according to our activities, we earn what we want. It may be, if our activities are low grade, we'll get what we want in a low grade way. If we want something really high quality, then we have to act in such a way that we deserve that. But nobody can just become a doctor, you know. He has to be trained up to be a doctor or a mechanical engineer, whatever you want to be. You have to get trained up by an authority. And to know who is God and who we are, we can't just make it up in our foolish mind answers to these questions. We have to oppose an authority. For whatever we want to do, for whatever we want to become learned in and an expert in, we have to approach an authority. There's an authority for everything. There's an authority about God. And that is called the bona fide spiritual master and a pure devotee of the Lord, who is actually totally sinless. He has no interest in what we are doing here, which is nothing but sinful activity. Sinful activity is just not caring, really, about who we are and who is God. And just like believe we are God. We can do as we wish. And we can do as we wish. But there'll be reactions. That's the thing. That's the thing we don't know. As long as we just do what we wish, we'll have the reaction of having to continually come back to this material world. And we have to be trained up, actually, very, very, very carefully by a bona fide spiritual master to live a very regulated and disciplined life. We have to learn how to control our mind. We have to learn how to control our senses. We have to perform. And for us, it's a sacrifice because we're just used to just behaving like animals, just doing whatever we wish and just getting ourselves in this bigger and bigger messes because of this, because it's all karmic. It's a big mess. And though if we want to really understand it, we can. We can understand everything clearly if we're willing to hear from a pure devotee of God. God is a person who has set everything into action. He is the cause of all causes. That is Krishna. He's the cause of all causes. All the planets are not resting in space on something that the scientists are telling you. They're resting in place because they're resting on Krishna. They're resting on his Brahmani effulgence that emanates from his body. And he is actually inside of everything, and he's outside of everything, and he's beyond everything. He's inconceivable. And unless we can accept that, he is inconceivable, we can never get any understanding of Krishna at all. But he is our love. He's unlimitedly beautiful. He's eternally youthful. He's everything our eyes long to see. His names are all we long to hear. His pastimes are all we long to witness and enjoy. And this material world, it is nothing but a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. That's what it is. And that's why we're attracted to this place, because it's a perverted reflection of what we really would love unlimitedly more if you were there. We're only just getting a very, very insignificant glimpse of what we can really experience if we wake up in Krishna consciousness. When we're awake in Krishna consciousness, we're seeing everything that is eternal. We're seeing the soul that inhabits everybody. We're seeing the super soul that is a partial expansion of Krishna, that is in the heart of everybody, guiding their wanderings. We're seeing Krishna everywhere. We're seeing the relationship of all existence, the relationship that it has with Krishna. We're actually full of bliss. We're actually full of knowledge, and we're eternal. But none of this we can ever be conscious of until we give up our arrogant attitude that I'm independent, I'm God, I can do whatever I like. We have to really become most humble and submissive to someone who came from the spiritual world to get us out of this mess. Because all we're doing here is suffering. Anybody who says he's not suffering, he is in the darkest of ignorance. Because all we're doing is suffering here. All we're doing is becoming diseased and becoming old and suffering from so many disturbances. Natural disturbances, storms, diseases. It's just nothing but suffering. This body is nothing but suffering. We have to be so much an illusion to become overwhelmed actually by the body of a woman or a man. We have to be in so much mind, we have to be in so much illusion. Because all of this is a bag of stew and urine and abominable things that becomes old and diseased. We're being punished to be completely stupid fools in this world because we are refusing to actually just admit I'm a fool. I've got to find out how to stop being foolish and only suffering and making mistakes. I've got to find out a way that I can no longer be a fool. I got to become enlightened, in other words. In this human form of life, we can become enlightened. And so therefore, because we can become enlightened, and we decide to not try to become enlightened and be humble before a greater personality who comes to us from God, that's demoraliac consciousness. It's envy. It's envy of ourselves, in fact, because within us we are full of bliss and knowledge. But we're acting out of envy of who we really are by simply believing that we're something that we are not. I will stop here, and I look forward to hearing from you. What I really want so much, I have a long story to tell, but what I really want so much is to bring people together under my spiritual master, under the world's spiritual master. He's a Jagat Guru. He's the Guru of the universe who simply goes all over the universe, birth after birth after birth, in a completely ecstatic transcendental state, to simply enlighten people, to just simply enlighten them who they really are, and inspire them to become his disciple, and train them up how to go back to Godhead, where there is no more birth, there's no more old age, there's no more disease. All there is just ever-increasing happiness and peace and a most ecstatic, loving relationship with the Supreme Beloved of every living being, Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna.